dark one.
It's
monarchy. And things move smoothly in that hierarchy.
And that means...
And the good guys are democracy. And democracy is cringe. It doesn't work. It's terrible.
So
Rand is on a Rand is the monarch that he is tearing down democracy after I mean, they're all monarchies. I get the point. But don't let the truth get in the way of my analogy. Go. Tearing down democracies to unite under one flag, under one banner. The dragon. That's all it needs. It's just one great monarch to lead us to the promised land. That's what we need.
I think you should be the PR team for Wheel of Time, because you saying that is more interesting than the crap I read.
Welcome everyone to the Tutor Ramble episode. My name is Richard.
My name is Austin.
And today, we're finally doing it. Shadow Rising! Woo!
Every comment for the past 5-6 months has gone, man, when is the Shadow Rising review coming? Today's that day. Oh, Rich, you're happy we're here.
Oh, God. I've been ready for like 6 months. That's what I've been ready for.
This is so anticipated. I think for the first time in a long time on this podcast, I have a little bit of nerves.
Really?
Yeah.
I would think this is going to be easy going for you.
No, nervous of how much you're going to want to kill me in my sleep. Oh God, I can't do it anymore, Richie.
I've gone through several stages of grief. It's taken me months. I'm glad it's taken this long, because if early on I would have still been in the early stages of grief, I'm now at the acceptance stage. I'm like, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
You're allowed to be ignorant on things.
Am I?
It's completely fine. Oh, that's why I'm here. I'm here to show the audience, to show the people.
Enlighten.
Exactly. The one true opinion.
Yes.
But in case there's some people out there, some naysayers, they got you to speak for them on the negatives.
I love our comment sections on these videos, because there's like two that are just like, oh, finally someone that dislikes this series.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And then I got those one or twos. We create a really small faction, a minority of just great and strong hates for the book series.
You know what's the funny thing about this is I actually do have complaints. But I can't say any of them, because if I give you an inch, you'll take the mile. So I just have to double down.
Relatable. I mean, hey, if people don't know, we're reading book 4, Wheel of Time, The Shadow Rising. We've done the previous 3, and a big question everyone's going to ask. We're going to give our spoiler-free thoughts a little bit.
Yep.
Based on, book 1 to 3, assuming you've read those, and then we'll talk full spoilers into this juicy book, the thickest book, I think, of the series, actually.
It's not the thickest.
It's not?
No.
Really?
Some of the Sanderson ones they're mighty thick.
Are they?
This one's up there.
Longest Wheel of Time book. Let's fact check that. It's The Shadow Rising.
It is?
It is, yes.
It's a thickums.
It's a thickums.
Yeah.
So this is The Shadow Rising, book 4, Wheel of Time. Everyone's going to be asking, are we continuing with the Wheel of Time reviews? Rich, what is your answer?
No. Because if we say yes, it just will take so much. It is killing Austin's reading time. It slows him down immensely.
I will say this did cause a bit of a reading slump.
Yeah.
That aside, my answer to, hey, are we going to be reviewing the rest of the Wheel of Time is most likely not for a while. And basically, the reason I'm saying...
Don't ask for it. Because you asking for it ain't going to make it come.
The way I'll read Wheel of Time and continue would be, let's say an apocalyptic event happens. No. In actuality, I don't want to close it off the table, because
maybe a couple years from now, like reading enough, like it will, in a new context and a new light, maybe you'll appreciate it.
Maybe
in the same way of like I've come back around on some books of like my thoughts are different over time. So maybe so.
A big thing, my spirit animal, Patrick Leo, as well, he stopped at book 4 with Wheel of Time as well. Kind of had the similar thoughts that I saw, where he read books 1, 2, 3 and gave it the 4th, because he heard the 4th book is where, if you dislike book 4, you're going to dislike most of the series. Is that a fair...
I am in general agreement.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I liked the first 3 books.
Yeah.
Like, I thought book 2 was great. And so if you're not even down for book 2, it's kind of like, why are you here? And then if you really don't like it about book 4, hey, this book ain't for you. It's fine.
You loved book 4, of course.
Yeah, I love book 4.
Love book 4.
It is one of my favorite books. Period. It's in my top 10. It's got my legendary. If you want my rating, I think it's legendary. It's my must read. I love this book so much.
Is this your favorite of the Wheel of Time books, The Shadow Rising?
I give it that moniker mainly because it's between this and maybe The Gathering Storm.
And which book is that? Is that book 14?
No, that'd be book 11.
11, interesting. Or 12, is it? 11,
12.
Or
sorry.
14. 12.
12.
Got it. Book 12. Okay.
Gathering Storm and or Knife of Dreams is up. I don't know.
There's so many to pick from. But Shadow Rising is top tier for you. And just to finish that thought with Patrick Leo, same thing he did with this series is he stopped at book 4 and came back months to years later and continued reviewing it. So that could be the thing. But just to clarify for people, we're going to review the shit out of this. We're going to talk down and dirty with this. And then after, there could be a day. Please don't bully me in the comments. That's all I ask. Honestly, don't bully for book 5, please.
Maybe put in the comments of who you would like me to continue reading this with. Maybe I can do something with another booktuber if they'd be interested in more, especially if they want to host it and they want to do, like, if they're interested in doing their read through and want me to participate, I'd love to do that where we can, I'll cheat on us a little bit. I'll go on some other person's booktube channel and review the Wheel of Time. That's an option for me.
Yeah.
Let us know if there's anyone in mind that you guys think of, but that's what I would enjoy.
That's a great thought. And then getting down to this book, Shadow Rising, why is it spoiler-free, just to sprinkle and touch on before we get deep, is this in your top 10? And what did this pull off for you of why you'd say, hey, Wheel of Time fans, you're talking to Wheel of Time fans here. This is why it's your thing. What is that reason?
Basically the give it a 3. 3 factors. 1, I think this has some of the best action that the Wheel of Time has thus far. It does get even better, but this is the first major battle that really got me. I really love the Battle of Emmons Field. I think it's just so epic. It's just amazing to see the farmers actually fighting back and cool perspective of, you normally get this kind of stuff at the end of a series, not pretty early on into a big long series.
Also, strange, they go back home, book 4.
They go back home and Perrin,
golden eyes.
Yeah, I'm cheering a lot for that. So I'm loving the action.
Action.
There's some great action scenes at the beginning and the end. I'm loving the action for this whole story.
Yep.
So great. Number 2 is probably the characters. I think the characters really come into their own and you start seeing a lot of their more desirable qualities and where there's some real meat on the bones. I think in book 1, caricatures, there's something there that they can kind of be enjoyable, but not really...
More archetypes than personalities.
Not really interesting.
In book 1,
Yeah, I've... Even the most interesting character in book 1 is Perrin. There's some meat on the bones of curiosity of what's going on with his the Wolf brothers, all this stuff, and
what's going on with he killed his wife. Oh wait, that was a show.
Yeah. There's more meat on the bones. Where book 4, nice big heavy focus on Rand and the burden he carries and how that's starting to affect him and how he's really starting to come into his own and how others see him.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, very tragic to see how his former friends, or still they're his friends, but how his friends treat him. Especially someone like Egwene, and how Egwene sees it and is frustrated. And you get frustrated for Rand on what he has to deal with, especially in the very beginning of the book of him trying to resurrect a dead child and wielding all this tremendous power and ultimately unable to do that. And you go, oh, Lord, this is a little messed up of what he gets to. Tie that in with, I love Perrin's journey of becoming an actual leader and these basically the lesson of being able to take responsibility for others. He's very uncomfortable with that. Very comfortable with responsibility for himself, uncomfortable with responsibility for others. him taking up that leadership position. Absolutely wonderful. Matt, we're just having a fun time. Matt's just the rapscallion, and he's a bunch of fun.
With a hint of womanizer.
A little hint of womanizer.
Just, there's a little bit of...
He's your little Han Solo type, and it's enjoyable to see him, and the mystery of what the hell's happening with his mind and everything goes even better. I'm enjoying that. Then lastly, third most important factor, I think the world becomes real in this book. Everything, like the previous 3 books, world's good. World's real good. Here, the history becomes full, realized. Like you see a glimpse of how expansive and how well thought out the world is. The key being, can I get into that spoiler?
Not yet.
I can't get that.
No, we'll get into that later. Section. Yeah.
But I fell in love with the world in this. It was from this book that I just kept running. I just had to know more about this whole world. And so I fell in love with it that way. The frustrations that we'll get into, I'll probably share with you. However, second read through, the things that bothered me just became kind of charming. Like, I actually, on my second read through of this book, understand more on why this book wouldn't work for others. I see the tropes. I see the repetitive nature of some of the stuff. I see like the stretched out stuff where someone will go like, hey, this could be cut. And I completely get it. So I will understand all of your gripes, I think, more so than on my first read.
Okay.
I still enjoy it. It's one of those things of like,
can I say too, this,
but no,
what this book did for me is it's confirmed for me as I was reading it, every single Wheel of Time book that I've read and gotten into, maybe this is me just saying this, but I swear this is true even to the audience out there that deep down knows or thinks I'm lying. But I start each of these books avidly, like zoning in to go, okay, I want to finally like this so I can surprise everybody, come on the podcast and just go, I actually loved it. Because that would be the cool juxtaposing thing to do. Turn around, have a little character arc throughout the series. But I always start going like, okay, I'm getting into it. And at some point, just slowly lose interest. Slowly drain that EXP bar or so forth. And something with this that I think I finally lashed out to understand is I understand why I hate it so much. I'm using hate, even though I just dislike. I hate. And then this book confirmed for me. So the previous 3 books, I was really confused with the absolute love you had for Wheel of Time. I was just going, this is your favorite series? No judgment, but I see you gushing. Book 4, I see why it's your favorite. I could see what it could become. I don't know what will happen in the next 8 books, but this gives me that aspect of, like you said, with the world and other aspects to it of why it's one of the most popular series out there. I get the perspective now and can see that stuff that you ate up. And I think this is where the weird thing happens in life, where books, democracy is cringe, yes. But that subjectivity in books, where my objective fact that it's bad and your subjective fact that it's good are just going to clash. I said that right? Oh, correctly? Right?
Yes.
I said that correctly. Yeah.
I completely understand it.
Yeah.
I get that the characters themselves are like it. These characters would not be written today in the style that they're written. It feels very much a little older, a little more classic. Like the tropes kind of age a little bit. It's repetitive in nature of characters that don't learn their lesson immediately. It's books and books where the same character is making the same mistake over and over, and like it's kind of a deep plot where you as a reader are going like, fucking get on with it.
The other tough part, there's 2 tough parts to mention. One is that you read this series back to back.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't get that momentum. So it's even the start to finish of this book. When you mentioned Rand killing, very soft, that happens early on. Or Rand reviving.
Yeah, this is chapter, what, 1, 2?
Yeah, very early on. But that's, for me, it was a much longer read. And on top of that, I'm listening to the audiobook as well. Maybe it would help next time I go into this, if I go back to book 5, read physical and try to go quicker. So. I'm going to change it up if I go for the next one, because reading experience can also affect your liking or disliking of a book and different times of life. So maybe there's something to go there. I want to shout out real quickly. Jai Sadai from our Patreon, who's a big Wheel of Time fan. You can leave our Patreon now because you're a Wheel of Time fan. But quick shout out. Just want to shout out our Discord, our Patreon, where we talk about a book each month. We did not do Wheel of Time for an official book club, but we have a bunch of community book clubs also to join. We talk in voice chats. Have a great time. Rich, did you want to also shout somebody out from the Patreon?
No. They get nothing from me.
Could have ruined someone's day.
Fine. Gecko over our Patreon is actually talking with me in our Discord. Just Diaz or talk about Wheel of Time.
Oh, sick.
He's also really enjoying it as well. So.
Well, that's another one to go then.
Yep.
Sorry, Gecko. Gecko's so nice as well. Okay, so now do you want to get into spoilers for this?
Yeah, let's just go right. Look, you're at book 4 of a series. Spoilers are coming.
Get ready for a long video. Here we go. Okay, Rich. Now, what did you give? And everybody will notice we have a little bit new addition to the rating system here.
Yep.
What did you give the emotional impact, and what did you give the thought-provokingness of this book?
Yeah, so I gave the thought-provokingness a 4, a great.
Yep.
So I think the thought-provokingness was great.
A 4-star out of 5, yeah.
4-star out of 5. Emotional impact, I gave it a 4.5 stars out of 5.
Okay.
Spectacular.
Okay, so
what did you give
for both categories? I gave the same.
No, you didn't.
And this, I did.
No, not the same as me.
No.
Okay.
I gave them the same rating for each.
Okay.
And it's maybe going to be our most off one. This is, okay. Before I give this rating as well, for all these that are upcoming, I know how ridiculous this sounds out loud to a Wheel of Time fan, but I gave it a 1.5 star out of 5 for, meaning I thought it was bad for the emotional impact and for the thought-provokingness, and it took me a lot. And I will say, when I was making my ratings for each category, I put them all higher and then looked at it and went, that's not being honest. I actually had them higher and went, that's not honest to how I actually feel. I was trying to inflate it just to be like, not as controversial, but I just that's just what I think. Yeah. So I went with my actual thoughts are 1.5, bad, but we can get specific about why. But talk about your moments, because 4.5 for you. You thought it was spectacular.
So many moments that So I felt, I also, not as much so, but I think it had a lot to say.
Yeah.
About the nature of leadership, the nature of burden, the honestly, the dynamics between men and women, how we see the world differently, and how that can come into conflict, and kind of that enjoyable back and forth you get.
Got it.
I think that's a lot of fun and made me think. So especially, and where it pushes it up into the 4.5
for
is
emotion,
the nature, thought-provokingness. Is that nature of history and how that affects our culture and time going forward.
When reading all that,
how much that it, where do you think our culture comes from, and how does it twist? Sometimes it's sometimes it's deliberate changes, sometimes it's just through miscommunication and the passage of time that changes it. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Of course, I'm talking about the Aiel, the history of the Tinkers and the Aiel and their split.
Yeah.
That floored me. I remember reading it for the first time, just going, oh my fucking God, that makes so much sense, and I didn't see it at all.
Would it be accurate to say it's the first time with the Wheel of Time you went, okay, I can trust Robert Jordan. He's been setting everything up, whereas, books 1 to 3 you liked.
Yeah, no,
but that gives
enjoyable,
regardless of what I think about and how it made me feel, and the thought-provokingness, which we'll get more into. But you can look at it as far as planning goes. He's been cooking this up.
Yeah, no, this is well thought out play. It's where I actually did trust him.
Okay.
Of everything else, like in the Great Hunt,
the Horn
of Valir.
Yeah,
cool moment, cool scene, but ultimately, okay, big MacGuffin.
It was also mentioned in that book too,
right?
It's
a paid off MacGuffin. Like, I think it's hyped up and then ultimately serves a good purpose. It's fine, but ultimately it's just a magical MacGuffin.
I think it's contained just in that book, or that's where it's introduced as well.
No, it's introduced in the first book.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's hyped up.
Oh, okay. Then
it's hyped up. I've talked about quite a bit. That's why I enjoyed that. But yeah, no, ultimately magical MacGuffin.
Okay.
Where this is far more thought out, planned of, he's got something. He's got something really
And
good.
hey, Tinkers and the Aiel were mentioned since book 1. So you knew about both of them from the get-go.
And just how different they are.
Yeah.
And then ultimately where it comes from. where their history actually started, and seeing Rand go through his past lives and his ancestors to see the history of them was amazing. And then just seeing the results of the destruction that Rand leaves in his wake by revealing this history to the Aiel, and how being confronted with your past can, it shatters them. And it's such a bittersweet moment of Rand needs these people, and yet he's destroying them. He's destroying their culture, everything they stand for, all for a kind of a selfish need of he needs them as an army.
Yeah. Kind of, I'll say this more in plot stuff, but it reminded me a bunch of Dune. And I don't mean to say it's not derivative of Dune. It's definitely very heavily inspired of Dune, and it's not copycatting it, of course. But I definitely see the similarities with Rand and with Paul and with the Fremen, or with the Aiel. Yeah, the Aiel. The Aiel, yeah, so I'm making sure I get it right. But definitely see that Paul's doing a very similar thing of destroying them as well. And I think a problem...
that's a little different.
I've only read book 1 for Dune. I know
even in book 1, Paul's not destroying the Fremen. He embraces the Fremen culture, and he lets them rise up to the height. He's not destroying the Fremen at all.
Maybe using the word destroying differently, as in I'm thinking as far as with the Fremen, he's putting them at this galactic... He's going to cause a lot of them to die, is what I mean by destroying.
He's going to cause a lot of other people to die, let's be honest. The Fremen are good. But there's different of how much Rand is using the Aiel, and what is more interesting is the Aiel know it. The Aiel have been living with this prophecy of knowing that their savior is ultimately going to destroy most of them, destroy their culture, destroy everything they stand for, and kill almost all.
Yeah.
But the alternative is their entire people is wiped out. The alternative is annihilation. And so their savior will save a small fraction of them.
Some, yeah.
That's their savior.
Yeah.
And you see how hard they fight for him. And others don't. And seeing them come to that revelation is fascinating to see. Yeah. I love that. That is very thought-provoking.
You'd say it's different enough from Dune, is what you're saying. But definitely inspired, right? Because
100% I'm
trying to get at the point that it's very much, that dynamic is very similar to Dune.
Yes.
I don't think that's controversial to say.
No, the Aiel are inspired from Dune, and I can even list off several other reasons, particularly why.
Yeah.
Far more details of, you want to talk about with
simply
Dune,
desert culture. I mean, very basics. But
not even that.
Go deeper.
Go deeper of the Fremen are their culture was manipulated by the Bene Gesserit. With the Aiel not manipulated, but started. Their origin of the Aiel is servants of the Aes Sedai. Now, the Aes Sedai actually aren't actively manipulating the Aiel. This is just time. And they have a mission, and it's ultimately changed over their history. So it's not the same, but definitely inspired.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know, to you, is that part being inspired by Dune, is that a negative knock to this book? Or is it just an aspect of it?
It's an aspect, and I'd say Eye of the World was more derivative for sure. But as the books go on, it's becoming more of its own. I definitely know, since I've read Dune and Lord of the Rings before this, the thought comes up, especially in discussions, like, oh, it's inspired from this. I mean, my favorite books, Red Rising, Hunger Games, because you have inspirations.
Also a bunch of other novels where, it's heavily inspired from.
It's good to see where the story's coming from as well. So with Rand with Rand causing the destruction of that Aiel, in that sense, it reminded me just of the position that Paul puts the Fremen in as well, of bringing them to glory in book 1, but obviously leading to taking them out of their zone, and now they're going to this galactic.
Thing is, it's almost the opposite of the
really?
The Fremen believe that they're going on to glory, and they are being risen up to the height of their potential, and they are becoming the conquerors of the world.
Yeah.
And so they're on the belief that
we're
Paul is
same conversation. I'm on the same page where Darrow of Lycos, spoiler free. This keeping it very simple. But the Hunger Games in the Hunger Games book is you bring all these people here. Pan Am brings all of the children to the games to show them never do this again. Bad. Don't rebel ever. And we're bringing your kids. We're going to kill them every single year. But you're bringing a battle royale and you have your main protagonist against this big society. Red Rising takes. Well, what if the society itself took all the children and said, well, our society is turning into decadence. So the rich, the wealthy, the best say we're bringing our kids to harden them. But then Battle Royale and all the same themes. It's just like saying, hey, Darrow's pretty similar in that, or book one's pretty similar in that respect, just where Shadow Rising is inspired by something like Dune. And you can see the Dune in Lord of the Rings elements, which, hey, to you, someone who loves Dune, of course you're going to eat that up. Like what? Great. It's like Dune, but what if? Which gives a great reason to why it's so impactful for you and why it just hits so hard, because you're getting a new take on something that has art. It's based on something that's already Dune's a staple, and then it's expanding from there. Because I don't think this book, like those elements, the world building elements, you see a lot of similarities, but characters, for example, are very different. But before we move on to character notes, do you want to talk more specifically about the thought-provoking nature of this and how the cultures over time, because you zoned in on that, and I think that makes perfect sense, where the cultures and shifting and how that could be a really interesting message. Just to clarify for the audience, we have our emotional impact. Just, hey, how did we feel about it? Did it make you feel what it intended to feel? The thought-provokingness is more on the themes, the message, and what it was going for. I focused on, for the thought-provokingness, I thought about this one. The culture, that's all interesting, and we'll talk about in that world. I see Wheel of Time as this story about men and women, and about why they work best together. And
that's one of the largest overarching themes of the whole series. Yeah,
and that point with this book, what did you feel about men and women working together? And again, it's not just this book. I know it's a whole overarching thing throughout the 12 books. Is there anything you thought about that besides the culture stuff and all that? I don't think I'll disagree. I'm just disagreeing on I wasn't as invested as you were, just in the case of it. But what about something with that theme and message? Would you say that's another important part of the book?
Oh, certainly. Some of the scenes that got me personally was so these are just the more emotional scenes. So kind of list off so already brought up Rand trying to bring back a child. I thought was really funny, and I enjoyed the gender divide and the confusion between Elaine, Egwene, and Rand. And Egwene and Elaine talking about basically, passing the torch of Rand, and Rand just kind of being oblivious and just not getting it at all. It's just so confused. Like, what do you mean pass me off like a sheep, or what are you talking about? Yeah. I enjoyed just that weird confusion and seeing how both sides think the other is like confusing and they can't understand each other.
Okay.
When ultimately they just need to talk, and neither side really knows how to talk to each other. I enjoy that. It's fun for this series because I'm getting it. I got into it. Kind of the reason, because I get into it, it's why Nynaeve is one of my favorite characers. Because that's
so she frustrates most people.
Oh yeah,
she's one of the.
I'm down. I'm down. She's wrong. She's she is the pinnacle of why, what is wrong with women in this world, in this story. The principal problem with women, Nynaeve. The principal problem with men, arguably Matt. Maybe less so. Matt, honestly, Matt is just a womanizer. But that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's not a great quality, but yeah.
Not a great quality. But he respects he respects women enough to he does value their opinions. He does try to do the right thing. It's odd.
Wants to save them.
But thing is, they're his friends. He wants to save his friends. It's not even. I don't know. Matt's deep down a good guy. But anyway, you get back to probably Rand.
Yeah.
It has a more interesting relationship with women, which is just more a position of naivety, where wants to protect women as a whole and ultimately doesn't trust women because of Aes Sedai, thinks generally weaker in a sense of like they must be sheltered, protected, and deep down he just doesn't like seeing women hurt or killed. It deeply upsets him.
Yeah.
And so he tries to push him away from that. But I enjoy that stuff. I want to kind of just go off the list here. Already talked about the history of the I Yield. For me, that was the peak of this book and what started me going for it. I absolutely loved Perrin's epic comeback to the Two Rivers. Him taking charge, starting leading the people back to fight against the Trollocs and the White Cloaks. Love him actually becoming a man and a leader. I was really behind that whole story.
Did you love that dynamic between Perrin, White Cloaks, Trollocs, and then
it was great.
Twisting that all
into... I was like, yeah!
Stop seething at me. You're scaring me.
I love the moment of finally, like, Perrin coming... like making an agreement with the White Cloaks of like, look, we need help. If you help us repel the Trollocs, I will go with you.
Yeah.
And he's honorable Perrin. He will actually do it. Or you think he will. I'm pretty sure. And the fact that the White Cloaks say, okay, and ultimately stand down and don't jump into the battle. And just that moment of like them expecting him to come with him. He's like, absolutely, where the hell were you guys in the fight? And it's just a good hating the White Cloaks moment. I love it. I love to hate the White Cloaks. It's very therapeutic for me.
These books are made for if you love to hate. If you love to hate, there's a lot of characters.
So much.
Yeah.
You could just hate.
Wait, this makes sense now.
I'm just
my God, you're curmudgeon self. This book is for the curmudgeons like you. It's just, what if we wrote a bunch of characters that are frustrating and then threw them into a bunch of, just hate them for a while. Maybe you'll like, then a little bit of something you like. It's made for you.
I just love how frustrating all the characters are. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah.
You got great stuff with. So on the first read through, I didn't really like Fael.
Oh, do we want to still zone in on emotion and thought-provoking before we get too deep into character stuff?
Yeah, ultimately, that's what got me. I really love the fight with Rand and Asmodean. Love that ending fight. That's really enjoyable to me. All the stuff with the snakes and the foxes. Super cool. World building. I loved it. I was so curious thinking about what they mean.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. To me, I was on the edge of my seat for most of the book. Yeah. I liked it. Even on the slower moments, I was enjoying all the dynamics between the characters and made me think about the nature of men and women, where we're often wrong and where we talk past each other, and then also the nature of history and culture and how it changes over time. Loved it. Why did we think it was so bad?
Oh, no.
Second lowest score that we could have. You could only go 0.5 lower. It was not disappointing, not flawed, bad. It was
a no from me.
A no.
Not happening here. So, talking about the message of it first, the culture thing, as interesting as that could be, I'm taking this story, and the way I'm taking the message of it, you're going to fundamentally disagree, and the Wheel Time viewers or lovers will fundamentally disagree. But if it's going for that clear message of men and women working together is the best thing, and this is what will make it. This is the answer. This is one of the things Robert Jordan's trying to get across. And I just if I'm deeply not connected and deeply dislike the romance, but the message of the story is that men and women working together is like the best, but I have nothing to understand with the romance and also just am so apathetic to it, that has to land for me to go like, oh, this is a thought-provoking and passable thing for me to go, oh yes, the romance between Perrin or Fael or Rand and Min or Rand and like all the different dynamics there. So if that romance is constantly a drag and constantly it's clearly not getting across to me the love that Robert Jordan's trying to get across here. Like, to me, a lot of it, instead of it a love story and romance between men and women, it's a lot of a lust story in some ways. I see it as in a lot of people lust for Rand, like him for some reason. Obviously, he has this magic stuff in the background and he's this person. And Perrin and Fael, Perrin says something at the end that kind of accrues what I think of it. I'm really simplifying this, but if Perrin saying to his younger cousin Jaim, I think it was, but just how he's saying, hey, you won't ever come to understand them, Jaim. You won't know, but you'll love them anyways. Like that whole thing about, you won't ever, they'll frustrate you, but you'll love them anyways. And to me, it's just a very, okay, I've seen those kind of stories before, but besides me seeing that kind of message before, it's that tone of Well, the answer is you won't understand them. They confuse you, but you love them anyways. Okay.
That's ultimately the message for this book.
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about, this book in particular, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a better message than the start.
Yeah, I want to zone in, though, on Perrin and that you won't understand them, but you love them anyways. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, to me, just comes off very superficial, and not like superficial, he doesn't have something to say. Like Perrin and Fael and the romantic relationships and all this, they miscommunicate all the time, but they like each other. Basically, what he's saying, you won't understand. What he's saying is, she's hot as fuck, but you want to fuck them anyways. But it said, when I hear that, I'm just going like, you won't ever understand, but you love them anyways because there's a physical attraction of some sort. That's why you love them anyways. They frustrate you. They do this, they do that, they do that. But you love them because like they're the opposite sex and pretty. I'm simplifying it big time. I'm just getting out my frustration of when I'm reading something like that. Like I get it's more layered, and there's, of course, give me your thoughts on that. Well, but do you see how I can read into that?
I do.
Okay.
I'll say on the first read through, I was frustrated as hell with Fael. Did not like her. Did not like the romance between her and Perrin.
Would you say it was abusive at all? Or
oh yeah, 100%.
Okay. Just check.
Fael is mean. Fael is not very kind.
It felt like our relationship.
A little bit.
Oh god.
Oh no. Yeah. First read through, did not like it.
Yeah.
However, on the second read through, I actually quite enjoyed their relationship and the little back and forth.
Yeah. What nuance did you get in it? Help me help raise my rating.
So Perrin doesn't love her just because of like, girl pretty.
Yeah.
He values her for mainly her strength of character and mind. The fact that she keeps him on his toes, willing to back up. So he is used to basically being the biggest guy in the room, strongest, and has to be afraid of who he interacts with. And this kind of, to him, this small thing, like she's much smaller than him, and yet can stand with him toe to toe, challenges him constantly, always has to be sharp around her. When he speaks, he's very good at being careful with what he says, really slow to speak. And she can almost always see through him. She makes him be his best self, and always is a constant curiosity to him. That's what I see. And he respects her a lot and he admires her. I think a lot of that is what it goes through. And then does it go over the top of like, I must send you away to protect you? It's like, yes, he's also a child, and also somewhat reasonable agreement. Like, hey, this is a suicide battle. We're all gonna die. Go away, my love. Don't die here.
Yeah.
That's pretty reasonable. Now, the stuff with Fael, like, constantly kind of just manipulating me, like, especially in the moments of you're in Perrin's POV of it's very important. He's trying to save his family and his people, and she's dragging this out and doing all these manipulative things to get it across to him that like you're not gonna push me away. Like, I'm your partner. Include me in things. Manipulative. Didn't like it the first time, but I look at more of we don't have her POV.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
I'm looking at it far more.
That's fair.
I see how different her culture is and how their culture treats men and women like in a very interesting, different role than we see some of the other cultures. And I don't get her POV, and I don't understand her as well. And so on the second read through, I've given her a lot more grace. Where someone like Nynaeve, like seeing Nynaeve from every other character's POV is like, God damn this woman. Like, take a chill pill. And then you read her POV and you understand her a lot more. So
we haven't gotten Fael's point of view, so that's fair.
That's part of it. Yeah. But I read a lot more into it on the second read through of how much she cares for Perrin and her being a very political figure from her history and her past of like, she is forcing her way to get Perrin to understand her point of view. She can't do it by physical force. She's not as strong as him, ultimately she only has her wit and mind to get him to understand.
I would say, though, the rough thing for me is Perrin. We get Perrin's point of view, and his point of view of her is just very abusive and manipulative and all these bad things and red flags. Mm-hmm. And he's the person that's supposed to love her. So even though there's those the connections they're having, and she wants to be a part of his life and makes her a better person, there was something to the effect that I just, even being in Perrin's head, I couldn't see how Perrin was justifying his love for her, where it seemed like he was overlooking a lot to just make the love story work. Because when him and her ended up together, and a perfect moment for the clarity to come from me would be that moment when JM is asking him, why do you love her anyways? And that's kind of his answer. I would rather have Perrin that dialogue not happen and let the reader fill in the blanks of why he loves her, than the added line of, you won't understand them, but you love them anyways, where that could, if you're going to use that moment to get across the message, or, leave it more ambiguous to where it seems like Perrin's coming across this thing of, it's conflating. I don't know why, you'll never understand woman, but you love them anyways, versus he could say something that's the moment to internalize and be thought-provoking to me. Whereas I didn't get that message across, where I was seeing from Perrin's own eyes, Fail was horrible to him. Mm-hmm. And sure, there's that undertone of like, she's good thing happening. I haven't read the future book, so I don't know if she ends up redeeming it. I don't answer that piece if I ever come back to it. But to me, she looked horrible from his eyes. And I'm going, well, if he's looking at her that way, how does he even love her? So yeah, it's some of that, and some of the points with Rand and the love people have for Rand, and obviously haven't gone into future books to develop, but just right from the get-go, everyone kind of just liking him and being the starter. Here's your protagonist. I do get that, and that being the starting emotion and almost a love at first sight with Elaine and him, and a lot of those tropes, or a lot of that, when the story is especially because the story is focused on getting across men and women working well together. Whereas, not to give a best example of this, but we had we love Sword of Kaigen, or we love stories like that. Not to harp in, because I know it's not going exactly for a book like that or other love stories, but other stories that are kind of going for. So I guess I would judge a love story way less in an action book or something like that, versus that's the crux of this, and I have to love the romance to appreciate the message. And if I don't love the characters and the romance, why am I reading this to figure out men and women working together is a great thing,
That's understandable. The romance is definitely not Robert Jordan's strongest suit at all. The weakest being Rand and Elaine, and can I?
You know what?
And men,
I think.
But
can I clarify for you then? Because I think the reason then we have a huge disagreement on love for this book is I'm seeing the romance as like that's almost why I'm reading this. I get all the cultures in the background, and you're seeing.
I'm reading it for
there's so much more.
I'm reading it for the action, the adventure, the world. Mm-hmm. For Rand in particular, the romance is the one point of levity he has in the entire story. Every other time, it's just sad and depressing. And just,
but the romance isn't even levity. It sucks. It's so bad.
I think it's fun. I find it fun, like just how he's dealing with the end of the world, and what actually causes him the most grief is just women like doing these little games about him, and just him not understanding women. I find that just so funny. He's dealing with the weight of the world on his shoulders and having to like execute political prisoners, lead armies, and to defeat the Dark One. And then ultimately, the thing that gives him a lot of strife is women coming to his room. And he's like,
how do I do this? Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny because it's the one moment you see like, oh, he's still a child. He's still a very young man. All of the growth that he has, like he's grown a lot. He's changed a lot from the young farm boy, but not completely. And those are mostly, I see it as like breaking the tension moments. That's how I see it. I think there's other moments later on. I think for me, by the end of the series, and I'll give this to you since we're not as continuing as far out. It's not
spoiler light though for people.
Spoiler light. It's just general thoughts on the romances. I think it worked out fine in the end. Okay, as a romance, it's definitely probably the weakest for me. the strongest being Land and Nynaeve work. It's actually a good romance. It's actually good. Like, gotcha. I really like it. Worst being Matt's, which I won't get into, but Matt's is by far the worst. Like, oh, Lord.
Can't wait to get into that.
An actual serious flaw. Fundamental flaw. Yeah. Except for one moment. There's one good moment of like, I see why she likes him.
Got it.
Beside the point. That's kind of how I see this perspective of, I'm not even looking at it as men and women in the romantic sense. It's just, how do men and women interact?
And
just regular friends.
Community. And
the best of this is Matt and the girls. The girls and Matt. Because Matt's not romantically interested in really any of his women friends. Not really.
Do you want to go into those characters?
Yeah, let's start going to characters.
Can I finish off with one thought of like, I think the difference of our emotional involvement and the thought-provokingness is that one thing you mentioned, look at the culture, look at the history here and how much that impacts.
Look at the action, look at the adventure.
And then the one note you had on, you mentioned this going like, I get the whole Perrin melodramatic, like you kind of passed it as like, oh, that's kind of cheesy, but whatever type of thing.
Yep.
Like, I looked at that and went like, that's cheesy and not whatever. I looked at that, I look at the moments of Fael and him and just her talking, and then they got to kiss, and then he's got to go. And then I guess I read into that and go, really, that's your romance when your whole entire series, one crux of it is men and women working together and just me going, I got to be involved to like so again, you looking and going like, there's that little part, but look at all this great stuff. And I'm going, that's an important part. And I hate that part. So when I guess I'm being obscured from the other good elements there could be, because I'm looking at that going, oh, if that's the purpose of this, it fell flat.
I don't even know if like it's a part of it. I don't know if it's like the solitary purpose of it, because there's a bunch of other messages and themes of this. Of one, what makes a leader?
Yeah,
that's a incredibly important part of this entire story. Arguably more important for this book. You have Perrin and Rand learning what it takes to be a leader, and take specifically, it is one thing to take responsibility for yourself. It is another thing entirely of taking responsibility for others. What does that look like? How do you do that? What does that entail? How does that change you? Because now you're not acting just for yourself. There's many things where Perrin has to basically conflict. He has to now, in conflict, is taking responsibility for himself comes in direct conflict with taking responsibility for his people and his family, friends, and those who follow him. That's great. Now, that's interesting to me.
I guess I've seen other...
That's a fantastic message.
I guess I've seen other leaders...
Looking the same thing with Rand. Yeah. Rand goes through the same thing at a larger scale, and we don't see the nuances as much as with Perrin.
Yeah.
They both go well together.
This is where because I think I've seen other leadership stuff that just does it better as good as this. So I'm looking at like the leadership type of character. I'm not seeing anything special about it. I see that why you like it. I'm seeing other leadership books where I'm just going, okay, they also, like Red Rising book 1 does leadership definitely than this. I'm not saying it does better or worse, but just that's the arc in book 1 is becoming a leader. And then I'm looking at the qualities you see that are great, and like, wow, look at that leadership, look at the culture, and that's where the crux of, you said, the romance isn't the most important part. Maybe it's important, but not the most in your head priority wise.
Here's maybe the rub.
Yeah,
I look at it as a constant work in progress.
Yeah,
I'm not looking at like by the end of the book, oh yeah, they're perfectly in love, super happy, like I'm in love with them as a couple kind of thing. Well, I'm enjoying the process. Yeah, it's a frustrating process, but I enjoy the friction still going on.
Like the enemies to lovers, friction.
It's just I understand it's not the best part of the book. I get it. How I am seeing is I enjoy just the friction between the characters and seeing how ultimately they come to some type of understanding. They start to slowly get each other, and even when they don't understand, they trust the other. And it's an important factor for both Perrin and Fael of realize like, hey, look, I may not understand your point of view on this, but I respect you enough to like take that leap of faith and trust you, even if I don't understand right now. That's a good message to have of like, especially with your partner, like you have to trust them. even if you don't completely understand sometimes.
Yeah, I'm trying to gauge whether we differ on how important the romance is. Like, do we agree on how important it is, or do we disagree on like how it was effectually done? Because are you saying it's a work in progress in book 4? You're not getting the completion of the story. It's an important distinction.
It's a bit of both. I'm not putting it as like the most important thing in this whole story. Where I'm looking at above the romance is the action, the adventure, the history, the messages about leadership and responsibility.
Got it.
A bunch of other things where I see most of the time the romance is it's the moment of levity. It's kind of the what is it? The comedic break.
Yeah.
Often like that's how I see the romance is treated. Is a bunch of serious stuff going on.
I think we understand each other.
Sometimes it's like, hey, look at this funny men and women dealing with BS. Haha, men don't understand women. Haha, women don't understand men. Back to the things.
Got it.
Most of the time, I see it as just the comic
seeing
relief.
That as the relief. Because I'm seeing it, I'm going, this is like an action fantasy disguised as a romance.
Yeah, so where
you're seeing it as there's romantic elements, but no, it's about this. And I think the reason I have that point of view is because of conversations we've had or conversations that people have about Wheel of Time, and also reading into this and how important men and women working together is. And you're taking that men and women working together as it's not just a romance that matters.
Maybe that's my fault.
You're looking at it with, go ahead.
I just think maybe it's my fault because I never saw that in the beginning of reading the story.
With what?
To me, it's the whole idea of men and women working together is like an important message of the whole story.
Yeah.
To me, I see it as like a comic relief portion of the beginning of the book and just kind of how the world is set up. Slowly builds over time through the whole series of it actually being very important.
And maybe it pays off for...
It does.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's to me, going through the books is like it's a comic relief thing.
Yeah.
It's a side part.
Yeah.
And then eventually, for some reason, by the end, it's incredibly important and somehow pays off.
Gotcha.
That's how I see it. It's not like, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not looking at like every book is like about men and women.
I think that's it then. I think that we're coming to figure out why, like what the crux is of why, because I'm going into this thinking that is an important part about it. But I think we've hammered enough of what we think about men and women in this book. Do you want to go into characters and then maybe that can help us clarify?
Sure.
So characters, would you give that out of 5 stars?
I give it a 4. 4 stars out of 5. I think it was great.
I gave it a 2 stars out of 5. I thought it was flawed.
Okay. Let's start off with you. Why did you think it was flawed?
So I think I could find a distinction of why you elevate the characters in general as well, and I don't. I see a lot of the characters as cultural monoliths in a way, where a lot of the Two Rivers act in the Two Rivers way. Great for world building and all that. And I think I've just seen a lot of a trait in the Two Rivers, a lot of the characters of stubbornness, or a trait of, here, I actually have down here of Rand's stubbornness, or whether it's Nynaeve's, Egwene's, and a lot of the conflict that happens between men and women, going back to that, of all them being stubborn that's not their whole character. But I'm looking at some traits like that, and I guess I'm looking at the character motivations and what makes them gear and what makes them work. And I'm thinking from Rand's point of view, and it's hard for me to just talk about this book. I'll kind of lead up to his thought of Rand book 1 to book 4. And
I think it's important to consider the characters context. 1 to 4.
Yeah, definitely need context with him from the get-go kind of mistrusting Moraine, for example, and Aes Sedai. Mm-hmm. And I get that. I think from a cultural and the Two Rivers and his personality sense, it makes sense why he mistrusts Moraine. And I'm thinking it more as character motivation and practically. Like so Rand doesn't trust her, but I never once mistrusted her. So I'm trying to understand Rand, but I don't completely understand him because of the characters that are stubborn or frustrated, or they're making these frustrating actions, kind of seem like they're there to be there because that's what these characters are like. They're frustrated and they do this. Now, for example, to give a comparison of why I think this, so I'll use Dune because some examples with Dune. Paul Atreides and Dune mistrust the Bene Gesserit, and you completely understand why. For 80 generations they've been doing that. He can see the past, present, future. I don't have to explain to Dune viewers you know exactly why Paul deeply mistrusts the Bene Gesserit. Rand mistrusts the Aes Sedai, and like there's the cultural thing of they mislead and so forth. But there wasn't a powerful enough motivation to go like, that's the moment, or this is the reason, this is why he acts the way he acts, to where I had a scene to where I had something to go, that's Rand. And so I'm trying to break down with some of their hard set personalities just seem there because they're there. And hey, Robert Jordan toys around with that, puts them in interesting situations where I'm sure their personalities come up more and you like, but I'm just not getting them. And a lot of that comes from just that one example. But why that stubbornness, or am I wrong? And tell me, why do you think it does land for you more than it lands for me?
So one key element on my first read through, I also ultimately I think Moran's like probably the good guy, but also Moran's got her own plans.
Sure.
The Aes Sedai, clearly she's not there for Rand, she's there for the Dragon Reborn. And whatever serves the Aes Sedai are her plans. So it's like, I get that aspect. Then there's the other side that we as the audience get to see the Aes Sedai in a much more complete, a much more complete context than Rand does. From Rand's POV entirely, he's the Dragon Reborn. He knows all the other Aes Sedai. He is him.
Yeah.
All the other Aes Sedai are out to get him. They have, from Moraine and from others, he knows they're hunting him. And the minute they get him, they're going to put him on. They're going to put him on a leash.
No, he was mistrusting before that happened, though.
Oh, he already
from the get-go.
He didn't mistrusting Aes Sedai just on a cultural aspect, and then everything prior kind of confirms of he's a Dragon Reborn. He does need to keep the Aes Sedai at a distance. He trusts Moraine enough, hey, she's not gonna kill me, and I can trust her with some things.
Not all.
But I can't trust her with my plans. She, her plans are not the same as my plans. And he's right to believe so, because she actually would get in his way. Especially in this book, he comes up with a plan, and he's really, he knows what she wants him to do. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to go around and he thinks it's the wrong move to go around to the other nations, start warring factions.
I guess I got a great distinction.
He completely he trusts her not to hurt him, but he's like, hey, look, I plan on capturing one of the Forsaken that she would totally disagree with and get in my. She would try and stop me.
Well,
why? Of course.
Maybe I'm being unfair by judging 1 to 4 with his point of view, but maybe this is a good way of putting it. I feel that he didn't deserve his stubbornness or didn't deserve his mistrust, where he kind of did that from the get-go and still does. So had that point for you is never interesting to me. I'm like, he would have done that in book 1 too, because he never trusted them to begin with, and he's doing the same thing in book 4. So that consistency of that's who he is, his personality, I don't. So I see the change of what you're talking about with his leadership or how he has to deal with that kind of stuff, but with stuff with dealing with Aes Sedai, he would have made the same decision 4 books ago. Before he even knew he was a Dragon Reborn, he would have made the same decision. He has more knowledge now, but it doesn't change much. So I guess that's some of it.
Here's the thing. His knowledge has only really gone, right? It's gone to confirm it.
Yeah.
And he is in a very unique position of he is either Aes Sedai enemy number 1 or they want to control him. He's completely right to not trust. So he started off of it's simple farm boy, backwater country, don't trust Aes Sedai because, hey, let's be honest, they're the rulers. They got their reputation for a reason. We get to see the Aes Sedai when we get to the tower. We're going yeah, they kind of are manipulative witches. Let's be honest.
They be witches.
They be witches. Yeah. They be manipulative. Out of their own mouths, that's what they are. Rand just keeps getting it confirmed. And to some degree, if he was so mistrustful of all Aes Sedai, he would kick Moraine out. But he does trust her to some degree of hey, I know she's not my enemy, but she is an obstacle. So can't fully trust her and I have to keep things secret. And it's further of just his further paranoia.
Totally
I think it's completely justified on his character.
No, justified, yes, and why he does that. I'm saying that the actions he would have made in book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, and spending all this time with him, I don't see any more difference of how he would act in this situation. And I'm looking at the character growth, or how the character, my investment in Rand and understanding culturally he already mistrusted, and he got confirmed more of. I guess there wasn't it. Go ahead. You have a thought on that?
Wrong to say grow. We're not at the growth stage.
Oh, no.
It's growing, but negative. It's degradation. It's not. This is not an upward trajectory. It's
instead of
down.
saying grow, longer time with Rand. We'll say that. The longer we've spent with Rand.
The more time we spend with Rand, the worse it gets. It doesn't get better for the boy.
Oh, man.
For all things.
Yeah.
So I think there's quite a bit to him of his starting from his origins. We talked a little bit about the Aes Sedai, of how.
Can I ask this? I'm curious. I'm curious on how you read into these characters, because book to book it's harder to go. You're looking at Rand. I know you're not rating it just because of this, but you're looking at Rand. You know where he ends. You know where his growth and where he goes after this. And I have to just laser focus on this book alone and what I've read up to this point. Can you get in that mindset of your first read, or for something that clicked with you? When did Rand click? Is there a moment that you started to enjoy him by book 4? Because I know book 1 you weren't on the side. What moment happened for? Yeah, tell me the moment, because I want to get into that zone and into why you like him.
Honestly, the real start was seeing him in his element with the counselors and him in a political setting, and then seeing Egwene look at him and how upset she is at how much he's changed and how she doesn't get why. And that he feels really alone. And then when he has to confront the bubble of evil, he confronts the mirror version of himself. Again, apt, given him exactly what he's feeling inside. And then with all of this power, he's not on a journey of like physical growth, really. Like, yes, he does gain more power, but he has all this power with Kalendor. And ultimately, what can he do with it? And it's such a defeatist ideology of, he's the savior. He's the hero. And ultimately, he can't save one small child. And even all the prophecies say he's not really going to save everyone. He's going to he's going to kill most of them. Also die in the end. But maybe it won't be the complete end for everyone. He'll scrape a victory out of the jaws of defeat.
Ooh, actually.
That's the best case scenario. And so he is in a position of it looks hopeless. Even with Kalendor, he can't even do some simple things and people still die around him. And it's just this constant weight on his shoulders of, it's not even power. He can't even get more power to solve the problem. He had it. He's got the ultimate power. Doesn't matter. He still has to deal with petty lords and figure out the political aspects. He can't even talk to girls right in his stupid room. That immense burden, how that's draining on him, is incredibly fascinating to me.
Got it. So it's him looking at these large world problems, and he can't even fix it. He can't not brush his teeth anymore. I'm trying to give a better analogy than that, but it's dealing with simple day-to-day things, but he's supposed to be this massive dragon. He's the dragon reborn, and these small potatoes things work with the plot and are not frustrating is the wrong word, but it's so interesting, that dynamic for you of, look at these small things, you have to deal with these petty lords and this little romance, but look at the stake of the world is here constantly. So you're looking at the contrast between that, and that when you're reading into that, what's your investment? You're going like, he needs to get through these petty lords, like they don't even know, they don't even realize what's actually at stake.
That's part of it. It's then also just the moments of, it doesn't seem like the pressure's gonna end. You don't see any hope for him. Like, he's like from the beginning, it's a death march, a long death march, but a death march.
Yeah.
And overall, like, it's not going to be easy along the way. It's just death and suffering for him and his friends and everyone else around him. And there's nothing he can do. There's no magical item to get. There's no solution. It's just get to the end goal. Maybe a couple of your friends are going to make it, but you're definitely going to die. So why care about the romance thing? If that's a constant problem with him, of like, maybe he would be interested in Elaine and like this romance, but then it's like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Why does this matter? I love that building and building of pressure on him and wondering when the hell is he going to pop. That's enjoyable. And especially with this book.
And do you like the interaction? So Gawain's looking at him. So you see him change through all the other characters and through his friends who grew up with him. And you're seeing more how they perceive him. It's almost he's losing himself.
Well, it's losing himself and just losing all the friends, and the people that can understand him are away. And the people that are there don't understand him and he really needs someone. He doesn't have anybody really to confide in, to work with. Like, even his closest friends can't understand or won't. And he's just entirely alone. That's pretty sad.
Damn.
That's pretty rough. Even when he has the girl, it's all cute.
Yeah.
It's just kind of covered in this kind of sadness of she won't get it. She won't understand. And ultimately, why open up to her and cause her more pain?
Yeah. I think you should be the PR team for Wheel of Time, because you saying that is more interesting than the crap I read. Like, you talk about, like, here's the thing that it's like me talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, the movie, going, so it's this insane plot with airbending, and our main character, Ong, he goes on this... It's like me trying to buff up a bit. But I can see the passion. I see exactly what you mean with that, how that could be interesting to the Wheel of Time fans, where Rand, again, not a growth story, Rand's degradation, Rand's fall. Rand is just going toward...
Rand's very long fall.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel.
No.
It's a black abyss. It's a black hole.
Yeah.
Got it.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's why it's enjoyable.
And it's not enjoyable for me because I guess none of those characters are ever connected with, or I'm looking at them as... if I'm looking at them as realized characters, a lot of them overlap in my head. A lot of them have some commonplace personality traits, and I get that's part of Manethering culture and important for the world, but when I'm looking at them as individuals, I kind of see as Nynaeve versus Egwene similarly in a lot of regards. I see Perrin and Rand, they have their individual responsibilities and how they have to grow. Matt's definitely very different. He's got a very different quirky personality. I won't include him in on this, but when I'm looking at our other main cast and side characters, I kind of clump them together. It's like, oh, they have pretty similar personalities. They differ here and there, but I see them as, when I'm looking at the split, you might see them as they have their unique personality and also this overlap. I think I look at them as they have this immense overlap and also a little bit of their own quirks and personalities.
See, again, this is a thing I really like about the world building is their culture is very important. Like, they're not, the whole planet is not all a bunch of individuals where they're all drastically different. Mm-hmm. They are products of their upbringing and their culture. That is a part of their identity, a significant one, that everyone's culture is kind of on display in their people.
Yeah.
I do also see that they're very individual, where probably your two closest characters, where there's many similar traits, is Nynaeve and Egwene.
Yeah.
In many ways,
did I say Elaine? I meant Nynaeve and Egwene.
I know.
I might have said Elaine, but I meant Egwene.
I know. Yeah. Elaine is a product of her. Yeah. She's very different from Nynaeve. Yeah. Actually, a very capable leader.
Yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you. I didn't mean to. I think I misspoke. Whatever.
I know you meant Egwene, because both stubborn.
Sheep-headed dole herders, whatever they say.
Sheep-headed wool herders.
Wool herders, yeah.
So yeah, they're both very stubborn. However, I think even by this book, there's enough differences of... Nynaeve is stubborn, a lot of it because of her insecurity. And Egwene is mostly stubborn because she is rash and young. I see most of it she has a lot of courage and she has a lot of drive and curiosity. She's willing to like push to get what she wants. Nynaeve is a lot more scared and intimidated by a lot of others. And so a lot of where they come from is, I think, different.
Fair enough.
Than their stories, and what they have to learn is also really different. Like, they both have to learn vastly different things. So I enjoy that. And they're similar enough that they kind of butt heads, and it's kind of interesting to say their dynamic on how they have to get up. Like, it's the student becomes the master, and now how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Nynaeve has to fundamentally deal with the shifts of power and balance.
Is it fair to say with those character arcs, book to book, it's not clear, hey, Rand beginning of book 4 to end of book 4 is not a clear character arc that's just like boom to boom? Or for most of the characters, it's not like the book starts and finishes to a learned lesson, where it's more so over the span of this series, they grow or descend, whichever word, and you see where they start in book 1, you see where they end in book 14. And
each book is a chapter in the story. Yeah. And I think each chapter, like Rand, if I had to define it, of Rand in book 1 learns to confront a hard truth. Like, he basically learns to confront his destiny and gets out of his shell. It's kind of the most intro book.
Yep.
Book 2 is where he learns lessons on how to be a man, and a little bit more of like actual leadership capabilities and responsibility, which he didn't have in book 1. Book 3, it's just a devolution of him running from his fear and just, I'm going to put my head to the brick wall of this problem and push everyone away. Learns that's not a good idea. It's not going to work out. Book 4, he's learning about mainly politics. He's learning about the corruption of power, that power is not enough. Because in book 3, he's like, I just need Kalendor. Ultimate power will, the faster I get the prophecy done and the faster I get the power, the quicker this will be done, and I'll save the most people.
That's like you with technology. You're like, this thing's not working. Let me buy as much tools as I can to fix the problem. Problem's still not fixed. Damn it.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Like
book 4, he's learned some nuances. Like, oh, maybe I actually need to like work with what I got to fix the problem.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some little things and lessons, and like,
I get you.
All of this is just add more weight onto his ever building like anxiety and his sanity.
You know what? I think I found out something about myself here today, besides you and I's relationship going forward.
Yeah.
But I think here's the interesting thing. Book 1, and no spoilers for this, I'm just giving a generic thing of book 1 in Stormlight Archive with Shallan. Didn't love Shallan, was fine. I didn't read it for Shallan. Read it for the other characters who I thought were amazing. And book 2, very light, like, hey, nothing, not anything big. Loved Shallan, book 2. Super connected to her arc. Very much invested in her story. And I think the thing with Rand and all these other characters are, it all started off uninterested in the characters, and never got to that book where it led to an interesting arc or an interesting something where I got into it or hooked on them, to where Rand's is this trajectory of step at a time, step at a time, step at a time, but I was never on the escalator next to them.
This is the slowest of slow burns. Like, you may think Stormlight Archive is a slow burn. No, because each book has like an arc that each character kind of has a lesson to learn. It's complete in that sense, and it ultimately goes a lot quicker, I think.
Well,
Wheel of Time is, so a lot of classic fantasy has kind of that episodic nature of a really long series where you're just kind of spending time with these characters over time. Like, it's not really, especially maybe some of like, I'm comparing it to Conan the Barbarian, but there's like however many books of Conan the Barbarian where you're just slowly spending time with them. They're more episodic and there's not an overarching story.
Sure.
Wheel of Time has that kind of similar format, but does have an overarching story by the end. Like, like looking at it as a whole, it's complete. But structure from book to book is far more episodic. It's So yeah, it's real slow burn. And if you don't enjoy those characters from the beginning and just kind of like if you don't enjoy just kind of sitting with the characters,
then not going to enjoy.
You're not going to enjoy the episode. Like that's
because it really is that farm boy turning into like the biggest, most important person in the world, and getting out of that shell. It's that classic. It's that tons of stories do it. Hero's journey and going on. Maybe hero's journey is the wrong word for this, but it's that whole journey of small potatoes, don't know much, and then stepping out and discovering the world and discovering lessons throughout. Which brings us perfectly into plot. If you want to discuss,
let me see.
What did you rate plot?
I have other stuff for
do you want to go back to characters?
Let me see. Like, am I missing anything? I already talked about
Perrin Fael.
We talked a lot about Perrin Fael here.
Anything about Tom and Elaine? I actually thought the Tom Elaine stuff was interesting with the backstory of how Tom was Tom and Elaine and not a mystery at all, but was with Elaine's mother, and he kind of has that protection over her. And also Loyal's story was pretty cute. Loyal had a cute story. You know what? My favorite part was Loyal. I could say something. I enjoyed that Loyal's you know why I enjoyed. I got it. I know what I like. Okay.
I like the one tertiary character.
Yes. So Loyal, he has more of an arc than Rand in this book. I'll make the statement. Loyal, he's writing his stories, and he's all about writing and experiencing and wanting to find out more, almost like your bard that's writing down stories, going around place to place. And in the end, he realizes he has to help Perrin and stop writing and become part of the story himself. It was the friends we made along the way.
He's been helping out this entire time. What do you mean?
No,
He's like, I just put down the book.
No, it's like he was writing the stories, and then instead of just writing them, at the end comes and helps. And
he is a hero too.
It's not he's just writing about other heroes. He himself steps up to play. The one time I'm giving credit, this is such bullshit. I'm trying to join you.
You're doing your best.
I'm trying to be like, hey, I like something too. Fuck it.
I'm just thinking like, did you forget all that Loyal did the past 3 books? Like, he has been participating. He is the hero.
But it was emphasized here. It was like a whole thing of him writing it and just a little cute arc.
I don't even see the arc, but okay.
Okay, here's the quote from Loyal that got me to smile, okay? It was, let's see. Let me try to be nice to Wheel of Time people. Here he says, look, he says this quote, I want to write of adventures, not have them. In this book, and then by the end he joins and helps Perrin and has this whole scene when it's like, oh, he's actually helping, whereas in this book it states, I just want to write them, not have them, and he ends up having the adventure. It's just a simple thing I was trying to say was fun. Whatever.
Okay. I like Loyal too.
You bastard. All right, so for the plot, what did you give that out of the 5 stars?
I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's great.
Okay, I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I think it's flawed. And I think we can have a more firm thing of where we stand on everything we've discussed there. Plot, you think it's great, and what would you think the best factor of book 4 is versus especially the previous 3? Do you like this change of pace? Do you think this is the best plot so far? And this is what
I think it's the best paced book of the 4 books.
Yeah.
To me, I don't really think it has any slow moments for me. I enjoyed the entire thing all the way through. Where there's other books where, like, great hunt. There's some slower moments. I enjoy the end by the time. Yeah. Book 3, maybe not every POV works for me. Book 4, every POV works. I like every POV. I'm down with it all. Every moment, I like them all. There's nothing to me on slow. I think it was really smart, a smart plot. I enjoy especially how this is the first deviation of the book where all the characters are separate and stay separate. They have their own stuff going on. It's not the past 3 books where they separate, come together again. None of that.
Halsman, separate, come together, defeat Halsman. Wait, one more. Separate, come together, defeat Halsman. Yeah.
But no, this is completely fresh plot.
I will join you that. I did enjoy that. Didn't repeat that. I'm with you.
Yeah. Which is, like, when I first read it, I was like, oh, thank God. Good. It's doing a new thing now. Yeah. Very enjoyable. I liked how smart the plot is. Now, on my second read through, I want to add on that I caught so many little Easter eggs there for people who've already read the series, and all the tiny little foreshadowings of what's going to happen. That a lot of big twists that are like book 10, book 11 are teased here. And going like, oh, shit. It was planned all the way back here?
Yeah.
Jesus. Loving that. I liked seeing on stuff that used to surprise me now doesn't, and I like seeing how everything's set up. Yeah, I love the plot. To me, I wouldn't change much.
I would say as far as Wheel of Time goes, there's so many places and things going on that, for example, the Logain from book 1. It's just, oh, he's back.
Yeah.
So it's looking at, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. It's just when you're mentioning how it sets up something 10 books from now. There's so much here that I can see on a reread. You're going through and going, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I forgot about that, because it's your novellas, your shorter books. It's so easy to remember everything. But then when you have a book like Shadow Rising, which was 300,000 to 400,000 words, and the rest of them, you're picking up on stuff going, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
he's an actual writer. He planned like an actual professional. That's awesome. So I could see doing a reread on this. Are you enjoying it so much you do a third reread? You think?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I love the Wheel of Time.
Oh,
I'll keep reading it. It's my series. It's the thing. I enjoy it all, and so this book is more the confirmation of I like what many other people would find slow. I enjoy all these characters that I just want to spend time with them. And I think what they're doing is interesting and fun. And it's a real adventure. And so I wouldn't really cut anything. That's why I have to say it's great. It's because I enjoy even the smaller stuff of Min and Logain and Swan Sanche. I love that aspect of it, of the manipulation of the Aes Sedai and the fall of the the fall of the Amerlin seat, and also the callback of like, you remember Logain being prophesized of, like, Min sees him and goes, he's destined for glory?
Yeah.
But he's already been gentled. Like, what's going on? Like, and you forget about him. And you go, oh, is that just kind of a drop thing? Like, and he's back. Logain's back. And you're going, hey, there's still something going on. There's something more. I have no idea where this could go. But he's going to be important. And I like that carrying forward and the promise. And yeah. Even the smallest little stuff I enjoy greatly. I love the Baal Doman coming back again, and just his perspective on the Shan and the little callback of the captain that basically captured his ship, and how that she interacts with the girls. The naive Elaine, the Elaine group, and how that interacts, and how they start to become friends, and that kind of sense of betrayal, especially for an Aes Sedai. Love all that. Everything about this book, I'm loving. It's great.
You're McLovin' this.
I'm McLovin' it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this book, going off of that structure of the prior three, where Behalsman's gone, please be gone. Please don't. Just if book 5 starts with that. So Behalsman's gone. It's not they all break up, come together, defeat Big Bad. Very different there, where you had just like book 3 had an interesting aspect to it, where you had your protagonist who basically wasn't in the book and being chased down. This has an interesting element off of your typical fantasy, where Perrin, one of the main cast, goes back home.
Yeah, goes back home early.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. Wait. Whoa.
Oh, all my family's dead.
Oh, wait. Whoa. I can't say hi. What?
Basically rallying. You get the scourging in the Shire, but early.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was scouring. Or is it scourging? Scourging or scouring? I forget that. You could be right. I could be wrong. One of us. We can't say things.
We can't say things.
The Shire gets burnt.
The Shire gets burnt.
Yeah.
But we get that early, and definitely the promise of, hey, Emmons Field is important. Like, they are not just the hometown the main characters come from. They are important players in this story.
Yeah. I
enjoy the hell out of that. Perrin definitely gets one of the more epic battles sequences, where actually everyone gets some great ending scenes. I loved Nynaeve's fight with Moghedien, of just that moment of, like, it's such a good, satisfactory moment for her of realizing, like, wait a minute, I'm not just holding my own against a Forsaken. The Forsaken is actually has to hold back against, like, can't hold back against me. I'm actually as powerful as a Forsaken. And like, how much she's been frustrated with the one power and how it's constantly denied to her. And then she needs a confidence boost.
I didn't like that as much because her being more powerful than the Forsaken also ran and then beating Behalsma in the past 3, well, eventually after book 3. I'm not too scared of the Forsaken or the mini bosses, where something like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which not spoiling that, but the mini bosses in that before you beat the big bad were all different, unique, and interesting, and had a different message behind them, and also had to work hard to defeat. Versus this, I could, just to be, hey, I'm here to provide the negative point of view. And my negative point of view on this is,
I'll jump in with you on it.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely one of the weaker aspects is the fact that the Forsaken aren't that, like, ultimately the fact that they lose as often as they do doesn't make them a very
compelling and threatening threat. Because the book is, here's another theme of it that we didn't mention earlier that's obvious. Good versus evil. I mean, of course, right? A classic fantasy, good versus evil, and when the evil isn't as threatening, it loses some of the investment that I have. But of course, you're looking at it like, oh, the heroes are so awesome to follow. So the little mini boss doesn't matter as much on your point of view, but to me, I'm looking at that in each book. And first, the repetitive structure of the first 3, and then seeing another mini boss, but not Behalsman. So I'll give you that. It's a different mini boss. But again, being defeated. So that, I guess, that Nynaeve scene for me, although it was maybe good for her character, didn't enjoy it because of what it meant for the story and just how much I'm concerned about the stakes. So if I'm seeing that, I'm just going, I'm not too much threatened here by them. I guess that was it.
I thought Mo Gideon was intimidating, especially when, like, the manipulation aspect. It's clear, like, our heroes have some advantages, but they have some significant disadvantages, mainly in skill. The Forsaken are more skillful, but in terms of power, like, Rand is powerful. Like, he's the Dragon Reborn. He should be. Has the power, but he doesn't have the skill and technique. Same thing with Nynaeve. She's unreliable, doesn't have control, but she has the power, and so it's a lot of her learning control. But so they have some advantages to go for them. I agree with you. The Forsaken are not the strongest villains. The thing that makes up for it for me is this is a story of good versus evil. It's the Lord of the Rings story, but imagine if the good guys couldn't get together on the same page of, like, basically, like, who needs enemies when you have friends like these? That's the Wheel of Time. Like, that's the largest. Like,
that's a great example. Or a great analogy.
The entire, like, if the good guys kind of could get on the same page, the series would be done in, like, 2 books.
As it should.
Maybe. But the whole thing is all of the good guys, or all of the people that are not on the side of the dark, basically keep getting in each other's way all the time. It is a constant, agonizing struggle for Rand to just, like, he's looking at all, the smaller thing is the Stone of Tyr, of, like, all these different lords, and him just looking at it and going, like, I don't get it. Why are they fighting over these stupid things when, like, literally the last battle's coming? Why? Why are they like, they're doing all these petty little games between each other when the end of the world is coming? That for the whole thing. Because even the White Cloaks are not evil in the sense of, like, they're not on the side of the dark. They're just stupid and misguided and manipulated and, like, God damn it, White Cloaks. But they're a powerful army. They could be useful. They could actually help the light. But they don't. Every single faction is like that. The Aiel, constant struggle. The good guys are just constantly having to get each other back in line, where the dark is kind of easy. Like, instantly, they're kind of all on the same side. It's top-down hierarchy, easy, pretty going. Like, there's some small...
Maybe the message is, hey, management is good.
Honestly,
the story is, hey, you need some structure in your villainy. Honestly, I'm raising my thought-provokingness. This is a great message about corporate America. You just need a big, bad, dark one to be like, hey, guys.
The dark one. It's monarchy. And things move smoothly in that hierarchy.
And that means...
And the good guys are democracy. And democracy is cringe. It doesn't work. It's terrible. So Rand is on a Rand is the monarch. He is he is tearing down democracy after. I mean, they're all monarchies. I get the point, but don't let the truth get in the way of my analogy. Go. Tearing down democracies to unite under one flag, under one banner. The dragon. That's all it needs. It's just one great monarch to lead us to the promised land. That's what we need. Now, what are my real political affiliations? And you ask these questions. Richard, what do you actually think about the 2024 election? No. You don't get that out of me. You don't get my true opinions. But for books, democracy is cringe.
Okay.
Plot's great.
Okay. Fantastic. I hate that that led to more enjoyment in wheel time for you.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
See, it does make sense, though. The dark ones have one control and power. They're able to... It's efficiency.
Oh, they are efficient. They are efficient.
The good have to deal with dissent.
Oh, yeah.
Dissenting opinions.
The minute you step out of line out of dark, you try to portray the dark one in your own head, dead. You're gone.
Unbelievable.
You can't do it. Where wouldn't the light just kind of benefit a little bit from that? Of like, man, just
a little bit of monarchy.
Just like,
well, besides the actual queen in that, like a bigger monarch that's in control of all the other monarchies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what they need. And that's what Rand's doing. It's good. Conquering by force to get them all in line.
Okay. Anything else you want to say on plot and discuss any other prose you had, or do you think you cleared up your opinions on that?
Yeah, no. I enjoyed. If you're asking me like, oh, what did Richard think about that plot point? I loved it. It was great. I liked it all.
If you're asking, hey, what did Austin think about that plot point? You're not asking that. You don't care what I think. You're not here for that. So,
yeah, if you're into book. You're watching book 4 of the series.
You love Wheel of Time.
You like Wheel of Time.
You're listening for some. You're going like, Rich, keep getting them. Yeah. Do you want to go on to world building?
Yep. I'll start off. Obviously, 5 stars. Floored. Absolutely floored. The main thing for me was the Aiel, but that floored me more so than most any other world building aspects, like how far reaching that actually says. That it's not just about the Aiel. It made me think like, oh, how did every other culture on this in this land actually develop? Where did they start off with? And it put so many different puzzle pieces together of now making me ask far more questions.
Biggest eureka moment you could possibly have.
Exactly.
It's really satisfying.
I liked all the other aspects of it.
I thought that was horribly done. The Aiel aspect of it.
Go ahead.
I'm lying. No, I'd be an idiot.
Even you have to admit, like, that's pretty good.
It was good. Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good.
Did you see it coming?
No,
like,
totally not.
The Tinkers being the
here's
part, like a fractured off part of the Aiel.
Did not know that. I did know that Tinkers had more to them, just because I know your thoughts. You didn't spoil anything from me at all, but I know your thoughts on Wheel of Time and how everything comes together. Yeah. I didn't connect that it would be Tinkers and Aiel. I just did. Okay, there's more reason to the Tinkers because I know there's more reason why you love them, because usually with pacifist groups that just don't make sense, I know your opinions would just be like, oh, the Tinkers are just like, they don't make any sense. Or you would have had an opinion by now on the Tinkers that was more negative. You get what I mean? So I went, since Rich doesn't talk negatively of the Tinkers, because Lyran from Stormlight, won't get too into it, but when pacifism to the extreme doesn't make sense, it can be a little infuriating.
Yeah.
And I was going, since Rich hasn't talked too negatively, there must be something larger that I'm missing. And this is the moment that it made sense of why they function the way they do and why they...
Also on the surface level, they at least have some aesthetic choices where like they're not just pacifists. That's all they were. It would be kind of boring.
Right.
I like all the other aspects of their just culture on how they dress and them searching for the song. It just adds more of like, they're not just pacifists.
What was
where Lyran was like,
yeah.
He's just pacifist.
Don't talk to the spoilers. I tried. That was my fault. That was my fault for bringing up Lyran. So,
my bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we assume that just everybody's read every book here.
We got it. If you haven't read all the books on the shelf, don't watch this chat. Like, go away.
What are you doing here? So what else did that world building moment? Obviously, that's the one to focus on in this book.
Yeah.
What's the stuff that isn't focused on as much that you also love with the world?
I love the development of the magic even further. Just basically Rand being able to fold space and now move, and just further development of how channeling actually works.
Can I write? Yeah, this one moment I had here of that healing and killing with the power, stopping the heart or boiling blood in the veins are close in how they're performed. I thought that the way it's weaved in that how killing versus literally saving a life is the matter of closer that
weaving spirit, basically. Yeah. It's very similar.
Yeah.
And Mo Gideon being more of a different, where all the other Forsaken kind of just like powerhouse, and she's like just a twisted bitch.
I've never heard you say twisted bitch before. Sounds like a band name. Twisted bitch.
It could be. Sounds like a really terrible cocktail.
Actually, I'm kind of intrigued.
I think I'm going to make a cocktail called Twisted Bitch.
The Twisted Rich. Oh, okay. So you really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, you were floored by it. I didn't even give my 4. 4 out of 5 stars.
Fair enough. Good.
Great world building.
I'm going to take it.
Now,
take the win.
Of course, this is the best aspect of the book. I think it was extremely well done with learning about their history and the culture in the past. This, to me, became more of its own world than the previous 3 did. Whereas Eye of the World through, Great Hunt was 2nd. Dragon Reborn was 3rd. All of them seemed, I was never in, not, the world felt real as in, I'm in Wheel of Time. There's some cities here, cultures, but this stepped it up from traditional regular fantasy and being kind of Lord of the Rings, Dune world inspired. And I get the Fremen and the Aiel as inspired as they are. Now it becomes its own thing. I feel like this is a book where the world, I kind of get that extra layer that didn't get from the previous 3. When you were talking in the past, you love Wheel of Time's history and the cultures and how things make sense. The previous 3, I didn't really, I saw hints of it.
You saw hints, but you don't see
I didn't get it yet of why everything was intertwined, and now I get it.
You get, of course, you get more with the Aiel, but I think you get way more with the Carrion. You get more with, like, in Tyr, like, how different each culture is, like, where Elaine and Nynaeve go. Like, I think you just see so much of their different cultures, and what I enjoyed about this book in particular is you see them and you see how different they are and how the people, even the individual characters, like, you're right, there is overlap of, like, they are representatives of their culture and their people.
Yeah, can I say something on that too? Because I really do think that thought is negative toward my character thought, but very positive toward the world building. So when I look at something like that, I see it makes so much sense. It makes me immersed in the world. It doesn't make me as invested in the character. And for you, it does the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Compared to, like, Red Rising, like, a red acts like a red. You know what I mean? Like, they have their culture. Like, all the reds do have a similar culture. Same thing with all the blues. It makes sense. They should. I don't think it detracts from the characters.
No, I agree with you. Here's the thing. When we're having our 2 circles of similar versus different, when I look at Red Rising, different reds, I see Darrow is very different than Cassius, very different than Victra.
Those are golds.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was thinking Darrow is a gold. So Cassius, very different than Victra, very different than Virginia is a better example. All is golds in their society. Whereas they have their overlap of their golds. I would say Darrow as a red before he... Okay, we should probably not talk too spoilerly again, but here's our difference between the 2. Of Wheel of Time, I'm looking at they're more similar than they're different. You're looking at there's more different nuance and personality than they are similar. I think that's the flip we're having, because
to me it's enough.
Yeah,
but I do acknowledge, like, there is a good amount of overlap, and I think it's good. It's good to have.
I'm seeing it's good to have overlap, but I think it's so much overlap that they're not nuanced in individual characters themselves. So that's the difference of you. I'm overemphasizing how similar they are, and you're seeing it's of course it's similar, they're the same cultures, but look at these points that are different with the characters. Yeah, and so when I see that, it's a great point for world, but they're not different enough, and it's not interesting enough to make me invested in the characters. But it makes sense why I give a high world building rating. I think that I want to talk about one thing that is. All ratings are subjective. This is a very subjective thought. The story isn't going for this, but a complaint I had about the Aes Sedai, and just something that I didn't think about this the prior 3 books, but kind of confirmed in this book a plot/world issue, I guess. That what they're, and this is just how it's built. This is what Robert Jordan wanted to do. Where the first oath is that you can't, you may speak only truths, or what's the first oath? Could you help clarify it for me? It's
first oath is the speak no words that are not true.
That are not true, right? And this is just the nature of the story, that they can speak no words that are not true. They have to say the truth. They can't say anything, right? That is a straight up lie. But all the Aes Sedai can still mislead and still omit and still misconstrue the truth, which is how they're able to manipulate Rand and how they're able to do all these things without lying because they're just omitting something or doing this. Totally makes sense on my point of view for looking at this like a magic system, or looking at this like a world building system of a compelling plot point or world point to me when the magic or something is used and it creates enough flaws or limitations to make the characters get out of situations in interesting ways. The Aes Sedai, since they're able to lie and omit and do all these things to get around the truth, circumnavigates the word of may speak no truths. No, there are still situations and they still can't literally say a lie. I get that. And I'm looking for something the story's not trying to tell me, is the whole thing of, I find it more interesting when there's a hard line or there's something that is so limited that makes the characters have to be really creative to get out of it. So if the Aes Sedai had a rule that made all of their situations have to be a lot more tactful or a lot more interesting in plot scenarios, that would have been I would have been a lot more invested. So I'm just thinking something simple, like just to give it a minor example of like, hey, if the rule for the Aes Sedai, instead of speaking those truths, it's like, actually say what you're going to say and I'll help clarify the example, because
part of this is we're seeing the perspective of Aes Sedai, like novices and accepted, where they get to break the rules. They're like, the no lying rule is restrictive. It confronts Moraine like all the other like actual Aes Sedai. I think it's actually very important, especially when there is a circumstance where an Aes Sedai can lie. The Black Aja. It's told enough.
They can.
I think that is a great aspect of it. Adds so much confusion into the story of when characters where you go like, did that Aes Sedai just lie? Or are they wrong? And you have to analyze it, because if you catch them on a lie, you know that they're the Black Aja.
Yes.
And then when confronted, I think they're incredibly limited, especially with Moraine. Moraine has to deal with.
Can I bring up the example of what I thought? Yeah,
go
then
ahead.
That's like a tiny thing. I don't think it's a necessary flaw of the world, but Egwene. So Egwene, in one situation, I had this written down as an example of the larger point of Egwene not wearing the ring on third finger on left hand like an accepted should, but she's full Aes Sedai. That situation where there was a situation in the book where she wore finger on the wrong thing to mislead or whatever it might have been. Are you remembering that scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
She hasn't taken the oaths.
Yeah. Could you? Oh, she hadn't taken the oaths yet.
No, she's not an Aes Sedai.
Oh,
she
then I'm looking at the
lying.
Novices. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's the thing.
Okay.
Egwene and Moraine is not comfortable with it, but is
got it.
Like, I'm not gonna say. She just keeps her mouth shut.
So the accepted and people that aren't full Aes Sedai can still lie completely.
Yeah, they haven't taken the oaths yet.
Got it. Okay.
Only full Aes Sedai take the oaths, and that's why like part of their training is because that's a hard thing to learn.
Okay.
Meaning that what they do is like, as a novice, like that's not as expected.
Yeah.
And as an accepted, they tell them like, act like that.
In my head, Egwene was for some reason under these rules, so then I'm wrong about that, because I was complaining about a case where I thought that I was like, oh, that doesn't make it that interesting if she can just do that.
I know. Big thing for her, she lies a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, lady, how are you going to deal when you're actually Aes Sedai?
I was kind of muddying this in my head. Like I'm thinking Elaine, Egwene, Nynaeve. She's accepted.
Yeah.
She's not Aes Sedai.
Exactly.
Got it. And the accepted don't have to follow that first rule. That's me not being a big enough real time analyzer here. I've overlooked it. Yeah.
She deals with it, but especially her dealing with the Aiel if she makes promises she intends to like disobey.
Yeah.
That's not allowed for an Aes Sedai. They literally can't. They would physically like stop. And like
and the Aiel portion of this book, which was the whole point of why the world building worked. So what, the Aiels and the Tinkers are the crux of why this. Yeah.
Why do the Aiel trust her? What? Basically, it's like, well, she's Aes Sedai. She can't lie.
Right.
So when Egwene says something, they're like, well, I guess it's true.
Right.
She can't lie. And so,
but she's not actually Aes Sedai.
Yeah. So she's tricking them from the get go.
Got it.
That is why there is such in many ways, that oath gives Aes Sedai some power of when an Aes Sedai makes a declarative statement of like being very clear. It's like,
that's true.
That is,
unless you're Black Aja.
Unless you're Black Aja, and then there's a whole can of worms.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So
yeah, that makes more sense.
Clarify that.
Good. So then with the Aiel though and the Tinkers, all that stuff, am I missing anything? Let me make sure I understand this whole world now. So the Aiel and the Tinkers in that history was that the Tinkers and the Aiel split with they worked for the Aes Sedai. And they were originally more like the Tinkers.
Mix.
They were but they were pacifists.
Yes.
Originally. And so they were originally pacifists, and the Aiel were the split that became more like, and the Tinkers went to the pacifism. And today this happened. Could you give me time frame from how long ago as well in the world?
Many thousands of years.
Many thousands, okay.
Or a couple thousand, I think.
Yeah.
Is at most. With the Aiel, so the Aiel have kept the name. The original servants of the Aes Sedai are the Aiel.
Yeah.
They were pacifists, and the last mission that they were given was to protect the Sa'angreal and all of the different tools of the power.
Yeah.
And like the Aes Sedai said, take them, run, and wait for us to come back to get them.
Yeah.
Like, but get out.
Got it.
Well, Aes Sedai, most of them died, forgot about sending the Aiel on this mission. And so the Aiel people are traveling for years, generations of defending these tools of weapons of the power.
Yep.
And also keeping to the way of the leaf, that their mode of pacifism. And we get to see the split of the Tinkers keep the way of the leaf. They keep the culture of the Aiel, their practice, their history, but abandon the mission. And they toss away all the Sangha. We're not carrying these anymore. We're gonna go our own way. We're gonna keep the way, but we're gonna abandon the mission. The Aiel abandon their way, abandon the way of the leaf, but keep the mission. They actually do defend all the items, and they bring it to their city, where that's all strewn about in Rudion. So, and then there's the Gen Aiel. Basically,
and those are extinct now.
They're gone.
Yeah, those are the ones that were originally. Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, the Gen Aiel.
Gen Aiel are gone now, but
they're gone
after
now.
After the split, they were around. Yeah,
they were also the last true Aiel. They also were pacifists.
Yep, and
also kept the way. They were the last bit of remaining. They basically established Rudion and discovered that basically they did work with some the Aes Sedai.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the character. What was the character that was a Tinker that started fighting this book? What was their name? Totally lost on me. But it showed that whoever
starts with a G.
Whoever it was, that showed a
Gaul.
A big world building moment for how important it was to stick to those rules.
Yeah.
And that for me created the compelling and real world for me that this is how seriously they take it. It gave a real world example of not just, hey, this is what they do, but it gave an actual situation.
Yeah, no, you're right. That was a great moment for me. It's weird from the outside where you go he's just defending himself and going to fight for his family, and how distraught and how absolutely devastated his mother is.
Yeah.
Or his grandma, actually, not his mother. Basically, it's because his mother died.
Yeah.
It's he keeps losing people, and you get it.
Yeah.
I love that scene as well. and also tragic. It gets more tragic. And the Wheel of Time is like still in its like happy phase.
We agree with the world.
Yeah.
You love it a lot more. Just, it's fine.
Yeah. You think it's great. You use the word great. 4 is great.
It is great.
There we go. I just want you to be sure you use the right word.
Now let's finish with this. Prose.
3.5. It's good.
I give it 3 neutral. All right, and that is the episode 4.
Hold on.
You want to end with a quote?
I want to end with a quote.
End with a nice quote.
That's why we give it... Here, I'm going to give you 2.
Give 2 quotes.
One funny and one really, I think, really good.
I'm ready for this.
Do not trouble till trouble troubles you. I just find it funny. Very good advice as well.
Yeah.
And here... from the actually good romance in the Wheel of Time.
Oh, also look at the camera for this. We're going to end it with this. As soon as you finish this
line.
I'm
looking right in your eyes.
Okay.
No. Camera in your face.
Do you want to touch the audience or me? Do you want to make this more touching?
I don't want to touch you.
Not touch. Do you want to make this more touching for the audience or me?
Oh, yeah, sure. You have made a place in my heart where I thought there was no room for anything else. You have made flowers grow where I cultivated dust and stones. Remember this, on this journey you insist on making. If you die, I will not survive you long.
See you next week.